And welcome back to Comic Frontline, everybody. I am Brant Fowler, aka the Gonzo Goose, back with you for another episode of Brant's weekly comic rankings. This is the series where each week I rank my top 15 books from worst to best. So, like I said, 15 books. Here we go. Marvel, DC, IDW, Image, Aftershock, and let's dive in. And I should say that every book is 3 stars and above. Number 15, Scarlet, number 1. This was a 3-star book, so it's not that I hated any books this week. It's just some I enjoyed more than others. I thought it was an okay start. I just don't think the story, this type of story, grabbed me enough. This post-apocalyptic, this thing, they're trapped within this certain city and their rebellion fighting against the government. I don't know, it didn't grab me. So that's why it's lower. Plus, I'm not a huge fan of the art. Alright, number 14, Hunt for Wolverine, Dead Ends, number 1. This wasn't a bad book. I think the art brought it way down for me. I don't know, I just did not like the character work in this book at all. I felt like everybody looked like an old person. It was weird. There were too many lines on the face and stuff like that. The overall story, it was just kind of a recap as the various teams from the miniseries compared notes and set off on a course to find Wolverine. So there wasn't a whole lot happening here. It was just kind of like, hey, if you didn't read all these minis, here's this. Number 13, Marvel 2-in-1, number 9. I'm over Ben and Johnny being trapped on this world, especially considering that we have Fantastic Four now and we know they're coming back. It's like this series should have been done, or at least this part of the series with Ben and Johnny should have been done by now. And there wasn't a whole lot that happened except for they argued and saved people in a different universe. So, oh, and you know, the art was not good in this book either. It was really bad for the series. It was the writing that brought it up a little bit for me, but if I was judging based on the art, this would have been my worst pick of the week. Number 12 is Catwoman, Tweety and Sylvester. Number 1 is the one Looney Tunes crossover I got to read the whole thing of. I thought it was a fun story. I mean, obviously it's an Elseworlds type thing and the camera is falling. That's just wonderful. So, you know, obviously an Elseworlds thing, and you're not exactly clear on which time period these things are taking place in, but it was interesting to see a different take on Sylvester and Tweety, and it made sense, you know, Canary teaming up with Black Canary, Tweety teaming up with Black Canary, and Sylvester teaming up with Catwoman to save all the cat and bird themed characters so you get a big battle, so it was fun. Number 11, Batgirl Annual, number 2. This was centered all around her brother James, and him being, basically, if you ever watched The Following, where the main character in that, or one of the main characters in that, he's a serial killer and he gets a cult following and they kind of follow in his footsteps. That's kind of what this is. So it was interesting, and I hope they play on it in the future. But yeah, it was just an okay story though. Number 10, Miss Marvel, number 33. It was a fun story, but it wasn't like, oh my god, this is a great issue. You know, the stuff that happened to Miss Marvel with her powers kind of going haywire was fun. Bruto kind of getting back into the lab and getting back to basics was fun. The Shocker, seeing him kind of as the king of the hill in this was pretty interesting as well. And I love his like fortress above ground kind of thing. But alright, number 9, Isola, number 5. Some turn of events for the Queen as she's back to human and then back to tiger and being taken off into the spirit world or whatever is going on. It's just an interesting story that kind of delves into mythologies and things like that. Plus, the art in this book is absolutely gorgeous. There wasn't a whole lot of forward momentum, but with a book this gorgeous, it has to go up higher on my list. And you get to learn a little bit more about the closeness of Isola and her bodyguard. Number 8, House Amok, number 1. This is a new series from IDW, and I think it's from IDW. And it's an interesting book because you have this family that is on the run because something weird is going on, something crazy. The pieces of souls are missing and they're having to hunt them down. But there's a twist at the end of the book with one of the characters, one of the little twin girls, that takes this into a completely different direction, and that twist sold me on this book. I was like, oh, you know, going old school, oh snap, you know, kind of moment. It's like, all right, so that's what they're doing with this, and that's going to be interesting how that plays out, what this little girl does to get out of this situation. So I thought it was a really interesting story that's definitely delving into the psychological. Number 7, X-23, number 3, I believe. Not as good as the previous issues, but you know, anytime you have Gabby on screen, if you will, it's fun, and I love that, you know, she's just mouthing back to the Cuckoos the whole time as they're trying to basically take her body, and all the while Laura is trying to find her, hunting her down, and the Cuckoos are one step ahead, and then you come to the confrontation and the cliffhanger, and it was solid. It wasn't as good as the first couple issues, but it's still a very solid read. Number 6, X-Men Blue, number 34. I'm actually enjoying this. Magneto is back, fighting against the X-Men, but it's not his X-Men, and I don't know, I think it's a really interesting story, and I can't wait to see where this goes, because, you know, then he comes back and actually falls right into that future self of himself that he saw that was not a good place for him to be. So it's going to be interesting to see where this story takes off, and the art was really nice as well.
Warning, if you don't want to be spoiled for this week's Frontline Live, save your place here and come back and watch this later, because we are now entering Brant's Top 5.
Alright, into my top 5. Number 5, Beyonders, number 1, a new book from Aftershock. This was also another interesting story where you think it's going one direction and it kind of goes another. You have this kid who thinks he's the foremost authority on this certain type of history, and that, again, delves into mythology and all these things, and this conspiracy theory that he has developed. But you're like, okay, well, he's a teenager at home, living with his aunt and uncle. He's just like daydreaming, and you almost think, well, maybe he's mentally challenged or something like that. I honestly thought that's the direction they're going, and they may still, I'm not sure. But then you come to find out that there's a secret with his aunt and uncle, and then black helicopters come out of nowhere, and now he really is involved in this actual conspiracy theory, and I like that twist, and I want to see where this goes from here. Number 4, Jessica Jones, number 2. This is actually chapters 3 and 4, digital series on Comixology, so it's actually 2 issues, probably once they actually publish it physically. But you have Jessica captured at the beginning, like we saw at the end of the last one, and then you go back in time as she's trying to figure things out, and she's trying to hunt down this person, and she discovers a secret. She discovers a secret about Dia, that somehow she's alive, and that's revealed pretty early on, so it's not a huge spoiler. But she finds out she's alive, and she finds out other people have come back to life, and it's all tied to this Jared dude, but she doesn't know exactly how. And we get to the point where there's this moment where we find out Mary Jane, she's one of the victims, and Peter is just beside himself, and he just doesn't know what to do. And it was this beautiful story, and she's okay, don't worry. But it was constructed so beautifully. It just reeled me in even tighter, and then you end with Jessica Jones still captured, and now we got to see what happens from here in the final 2 chapters. So number 3 is Batgirl, number 26. Grotesque, I'm not sure how I care about him as a villain, but what he does in this issue is very important to Barbara. And as they're fighting, he hits her with the shock stick, and it messes her up. And by the issue's end, her implant is not working, and she can't walk. And it's like, are they going back there? Are they gonna fix it? What are they doing? Either way, I'm intrigued, and I gotta see what happens now. And the battle was pretty solid too, and her inner dialogue. I love the direction of the book now with this team that they're taking them. This and the annual, written by the same person. I think it's more intense, more serious, but you still get to the core of Barbara's character. So I appreciate the direction they're going with it. All right, so number 2. Runaways, number 12. I thought this was a very, very good issue. We talked a little bit about this on Zone 4. Kat she joined us on Zone 4 last week, and it's up on Comic Frontline now. And we had a mini discussion about this, saving the big discussion for tonight on Frontline Live. But up to this point, I felt like the whole Nico Carolina thing was forced. I didn't feel like it was natural or telegraphed at all from my reading point of view. I didn't feel it. I thought this particular issue did a good job of making me believe that this has been planted for all these years. Whether that's true or not, that's up for debate, and that's part of why it's not a perfect book for me, because I don't see it. I feel like it's a forced relationship a little bit. But like I said, this particular issue, judging it just in and of itself, made sense. Now the stuff with Gert and Victor, that kind of came out of nowhere. It was a cute moment. It was really nice and fun and lovely and all that stuff, but it was still like it's out of nowhere. But overall, I thought this was a fantastic read, and this is by far the best Runaways series since Volume 1 for me. So there you go. Number 1, Extermination number 2. I'm really enjoying this series. I love it. I love how all the X-Men came together to try to figure this out, because their own are being taken out, whether they're being killed or kidnapped or whatever, and they don't know what's going on. They know Ahab is back, and Rachel is dealing with that, but you also have some mystery person abducting people, and they're not sure. And then they find out who it is, and then they're just even more beside themselves. And you have some confrontations with this person and another person taken and tortured, and then you have them dealing with the fallout of that and losing another member, and then Ahab comes and he makes new hounds, and it's not good. It's not good at all for the X-Men. So just a lot of layers here, a lot of interesting things going on, and you don't know where this is headed. That's the beautiful part about it. There's a mystery about it. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's not predictable. So really enjoyed it, and there you go. Those are my rankings for this week for books that came out August 29th. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and hit the notification bell on the channel. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of my picks and what your picks were, and tune in to Frontline Live tonight as we go more in depth about our top 5 and worst picks and various other books. And we also have an e-panel going on tonight before that with Bob Sally, so go check that out. And of course, you can follow me on my channel at Brant Fowler across social media, Last Ember Press, Zone 4 Podcast, and right back here on Comic Frontline next week for a brand new episode of Brant's Weekly Comic Rankings. Until then, bye.